All right, thank you everybody for watching Competing in Cornfields. I'm here with Ray Peterson. We are at Jingmo Tong right now.
Welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, Ray. I mean, I feel like you're a pretty well-traveled guy. Where all have you been besides the U.S.?
Surprisingly, the only place I've actually ever lived outside of the U.S. is Taiwan. I haven't been to too many countries, a stop here along the way, but in general, I spent most of my time outside of the States on the island of Taiwan.
Oh,
Yeah.
when was that?
Back in 2001, actually, I just graduated high school and I lived the summer over in Taiwan. So, just pre 9/11.
Pre-night.
Yeah, like literally the last, few travelers pre 9/11. I was
Oh
one of those
yeah.
guys. Yeah.
Wow, that's scary, especially flying internationally.
Yeah, it was
Man.
it was different. It felt different. Felt really easy compared to even some of the domestic trips I've taken recently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dang. All right. Like I said, we're at Jingmo Tong, and like in a nutshell, like what all do you do here?
Well, we mostly are a Chinese lion dance club. Lion dancing is what most people they think dragon dancing. So a dragon has like 8, 10, 20 people in it. A lion only has two. So most of our folks here, they're interested in the lion dance. Lion dance is a combination of live music, acrobatic skills for costume performers. And the other thing, we also practice Chinese martial arts. The vast majority of our martial arts students are interested in performance arts. So they're mostly learning forms and flashy techniques and things that they perform at Chinese New Year, or maybe they enter some tournaments. I've had a few students in the past interested in full contact Chinese kickboxing, sanda, and I've sent one fighter to a tournament before, but there isn't a huge interest in that, so we discontinued that group. And right now we're just doing performance martial arts and lion dancing.
Nice.
Yeah.
That I did think of another question that I wanted to ask you. So, all right, so like kung fu, a big umbrella underneath it, all of Chinese martial arts, performing arts.
So, similar to other martial arts, there's always this whole like this is this, and then there's these styles underneath of it, and what. So we like to say in Chinese martial arts, you have Chinese martial arts, and then underneath of that you have modern arts, and you have what's called traditional Chinese martial arts. Traditional martial arts are what we think of when we watch like Shaolin Temple movies and things like that, right?
Yeah.
And then modern martial arts are based on two sports that the Chinese government, mainland China, started. One would be wushu. Wushu is modern performance martial arts based on a combination of gymnastics and martial techniques. And then the other half of that is sanda. And sanda or sanshou is Chinese kickboxing. And Chinese kickboxing was developed as a combination of traditional kung fu techniques and Muay Thai. And a lot of folks don't like to say in Muay Thai, but the reality is there's some pretty famous older boxing matches where Chinese boxers fought Muay Thai fighters and got beat up pretty well.
Ooh.
And they so instead of saying, hey, this stuff is no good, we're really good, you know how people do. No, instead they said, hey, what can we take from Thai boxing and develop it in our own art? And so that's why you see the Sanda guys, they do a lot of like leg kicks, a lot of round kicks. You see a lot of big overhand right, things like that in Chinese kickboxing. There's some knees in there. A lot of guys like to throw knees because they're good for takedowns.
Mm.
Wrestling takedowns are allowed. So that's modern. Traditional, on the other hand, traditional is like the Ip Man movies, Wing Chun, that kind of stuff, the animal styles, all those things. It's a huge umbrella. Everything from Tai Chi to Shaolin to all that stuff falls under traditional. The vast majority of what we do is traditional martial arts, but for performance purposes.
Mm-hmm.
We do have one instructor who formerly did train in Wushu. And so he does some Wushu, which is the modern Chinese performance art. And then in our sister school in Omaha, actually, he's one of the head advisors and instructors of Chinese martial arts here. My buddy Jake, he was actually a collegiate Wushu champion. So there is some here in Nebraska, you just don't see it.
Yeah. Oh, one thing that I also thought about is like, I know that you all do a lot for practice performance and stuff
Hmm.
like that. Let's say that they had like an old school UFC style tournament
Hmm.
of all Chinese martial arts. Who wins?
You know, it's a funny story,
Everybody suits up how they do.
right? It's a funny story to say it like that because everybody wants to go, oh, I think, Wing Chun will win, or oh, I
Yeah.
think, Tiger Style, or. But the reality is, it's just like any fight sport. It's not the style, it's the fighter, right?
Mhm.
How much time did that fighter put into his cardio, his conditioning, his bag work? How much live wrestling did he do? Because traditionally, Chinese martial arts had all of that also.
Mhm.
And over the years, it's developed into less than that, not by fault of the art, but by fault of the people,
Yeah.
right? And that's every martial art, karate, taekwondo, all those things that, like you and I, we train jujitsu and stuff, and when we think about those other guys, we're like, oh man, those are kids playing in pajamas. But at one point in history, those were all a bunch of tough guys who could fight.
Mhm.
They decided to leave fighting behind. And so for me, I wouldn't ever want to pick one style of kung fu, but rather I'd say one style of person. And that's the person who's going to train the hardest, the most, the smartest, and the best.
Mm. Let's say that they were all the uh, competitors were somewhat on the same level, all comparable, all like Hoist Gracie, just in every single martial art.
Um,
Who do you think wins?
I think at that point, then you have to look at like stylistically, who who can negate other people's
Mhm.
styles, right? And in my heart, I'm a grappler. That's what I grew up doing, and so I always want to lean that direction. But I also believe it from the sense of like in a one-on-one fight, if you can tie somebody up, they can't hit you.
Yeah.
So if you can out grapple them, you can outfight them. And we see that all the time, in even in MMA, right? The guy who can
Mhm.
get the takedown and be on top is the guy who's hitting the other guy.
Yeah.
Things like that. Uh, Actually, Tai Chi has a lot of really good wrestling in it. There's an art called Shuai Jiao. Shuai Jiao is traditional Chinese jacket wrestling. Think of like, think of Greco and Judo combined. That's Shuai Jiao. There's one called Bagua. Bagua has a lot of arm locks and throws. I think those arts would definitely do well. And then you'd have the guys who could develop their art and see. Wing Chun has throws, but
Mhm.
almost nobody sees them. You know, Hung Gar, Chua Li Fut, all these long swingy arm styles. There's throws in there, but not everybody trains them. But throws and locks, and being able to impose your will upon someone, I think is higher percentage. But there's always a puncher's chance,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah. No. I'm with
What you and
that.
Nick were working on actually,
Oh
that's
yeah.
straight out of the book of Puncher's
Mhm.
Chance Kung Fu. That overhand right, that was textbook.
Yeah.
It was really awesome, but that's exactly, so you never know. Might have that guy that's got that one good overhand right that catches somebody.
Yeah. If it lands, it's all over. But yeah. Like the other day at the gym, like we were talking about. You said that you had stories of run-ins with triad gangsters.
Kind of. It, Run-ins isn't the right way to
Or
describe it. I would describe it as like instances where I shared their world momentarily, but had no clue I was there until after the fact.
oh.
So I'll tell you the story. And we kind of caught on. We were all teenagers, so it's like one of those like, oh moments. So we're in Taiwan, and my teacher. There's four of us from Lincoln actually that went to Taiwan together to train martial arts. And my teacher, he takes us to like the larger city in our area. We're gonna hang out. Some of his older students, because he's been teaching a long time, own businesses. One guy owned a nightclub. One guy owned a steakhouse. He's like, oh, we're just gonna go have fun. We'll go to the nightclub later, whatever. But I gotta meet this guy first. Just call him Uncle. Okay, no problem. Yeah, so we show up at this like antique shop, and it's already kind of weird because there's only a few antiques in there. There's not a whole lot of stuff in this shop. And a guy, he's just sitting there chilling, talks to our teacher and whatever, and they're talking and they're doing their thing, and we're just sitting there like four American kids in Taiwan. And finally, he's like, hey, we got to go upstairs to this guy's place. We're going to go upstairs. And then you guys just hang out, don't touch anything, don't talk to anybody, just chill.
Yeah.
So we go upstairs, up this little narrow stairs. And you know in the movies when there's like the big metal door and the thing slides open and they're like, who is it?
Yeah.
It was like that. I swear. So they open the door and we walk in and there's like 3 dudes, a couple of big dudes and a smaller dude in there already. And then like the uncle dude and us. And we're all sitting down. And my teacher's like, you know, talking to him, whatever. He's like, hey, you guys, ha ha ha. These guys are tough guys. They're pretty cool. And he was like, hey, come here. And he called one of the big guys over. He's like, take off your shirt. And the dude whips off his shirt, and he's like tatted, like Japanese gangster style, like all tattoos. And we're like, whoa. Because I just graduated high school from Lincoln High, you know, right here in Lincoln. So it's like flying to Taiwan, living with a host family, training martial arts every day. It was like a whole new experience. And we're just like blown away. We're like, what is this dude? He throws his shirt back on, and our teacher's like, yeah, we're gonna be here for a while. So those 2 big guys are gonna take you guys down to walk around town, hang out. And we spent the rest of the evening down in the night market in Taichung, in the city of Taichung, being escorted by 2 large Yakuza-looking dudes. And later come to find out, after talking to our teacher was like, oh yeah, that guy was the dragon head of the city. And in triad terms, dragon head means like the Don Corleone, the boss.
Oh.
So like we had met the godfather of Taichung that night.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool. But like super unexpected. Like we as kids, you know, we had no clue. We were like, what is this? And then dude whips off his shirt and we're like, whoa. So
right.
It's pretty cool. That's probably the most gangster situation I was in. I was in a lot of other like sketchy, like lower level type situations in different places, like you know, like being in the club with one of my teacher's best friends who's in his flip-flops and shorts and tank top with his other 2 students in flip-flops and shorts, and those guys getting in fights and, you know, stupid stuff like that. And hanging out with cops. We hung out with a lot of cops and a lot of gangsters. Yeah.
Dirty cops.
It was cool. It's funny actually, my teacher, he'd always make a joke about it. He taught military and police hand-to-hand tactics, and he taught gangster bodyguards. And he'd always talk about it like, in Chinese we call 黑白两道. So the black side and the white side, he's in both worlds. And it was really cool because we got to go to military bases, police departments, I mean, all sorts of different experiences, but we also went to triad places, triad-owned bars, like, so it was really neat.
That is cool. Like, whenever you're in Taiwan, how long does it take for them to figure out that you're American?
Oh, right
like
away.
They knew that you're American right away?
Instantaneous. Except when I first got there. So this is a funny story, too. So when I first got there, we, it wasn't like we're truly our first got there. It was like within like a week of being there. So we live on a mountain, right? And our host family lives kind of towards the top, not at the top. And then like the village lies below it, and then below that's the big city from where we're at, right? And you got to go like a third of the way down the mountain to get to where the Kung Fu school was. So our teacher, thinking we need to be in better shape, and of course I have always needed to be in better shape. I was just as roly-poly then as I am now, right? Our teacher's like, you're going to jog to the school and jog home every day. So for Americans in this part of Taiwan, it's very rare. So news crew comes out, wants to do a story on everybody, right? And they're filming us jogging from the school, okay? So whatever, we're all jogging. But of course, I'm the fat kid, so like the 3 dudes that are with me are like gone, and I'm still trying to jog to catch up. And all of a sudden, I'm in somebody's courtyard at somebody's house because I took a wrong turn or something. And then I'm like, what the heck? And then I'm like, so I'm wandering around and stuff. And then all of a sudden, this huge crowd of people's like coming along. And they're like looking around. And they're like, hey, there's like a thief or somebody on the mountain. And we're like, what? A thief or something? Yeah, we're trying to catch this thief. And they're like, what's he wearing? Oh, he's wearing like this plaid shirt and shorts, like khaki shorts.
Oh.
Because I was wandering.
Yeah.
They had reported my description. And they said I was a Aboriginal. Because in Taiwan, there's a Polynesian Aboriginal group that were the original people of Taiwan. And this was like the first time someone thought I was a local Aboriginal. It happened 3 or 4 more times over the course of the trip.
Wow.
But it was crazy because it's like, there's this thief, everybody watch out. And they're like, that's him. And like, I'm just lost. I'm just a lost American. So it was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's great. I wouldn't have known that they would be able to call it out right away. or you know what I don't know,
That's that
but
like kind of like here in the states, you know how there's like the network where like somebody sees something in the neighborhood, calls somebody else.
yeah,
Like by the time I had found everybody else, everyone had told everybody on the mountain that there's some thief running around.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny. And yeah, so yeah, we're at your gym. Obviously, like how did you get started, and do you have any advice for people who do want to start their own business or gym?
Well, the start story is actually incredibly interesting and a little bit serendipity in the sense of myself and the other instructors. At the time, there's actually five of us that got together. Um, five, six, 5 or 6 of us. We all had heard that there was a group lion dancing in town using our old equipment from when we were kids, because we used to belong to a club here in town when we were kids. And we were like, oh man, that sounds like something that would be fun. Let's go check out what these kids are up to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, long story short, we joined back to the old club. There was a lot of politics going on that weren't very savory.
Mm.
And I'd come home, every time we went over to the old club, I'd come home and I'd complain to my wife, honey, I think these kids are getting treated badly.
Mm-hmm.
I think things aren't going the way they should go. Instruction's not happening the way it should be. I don't even know if there's like insurance covering these kids. I don't know what's going on. I was like, they literally just show up and play with the equipment and go home, and I don't know, I don't really trust the situation. And I complained about this for a little while, and then this whole time, unbeknownst to me, known to some of the other people in the group, but unbeknownst to me, my wife was filing paperwork to start a business, was buying equipment, and basically used all the money that we had saved for our wedding to buy the first set of equipment and get the first set of insurance and all those things put together. So that when it was all said and done, she was like, here you go, now make it happen. And
That's
it just
awesome.
kind of went from there. And without the support of like the instructors here, An Nguyen, Jeanette Chun, Johnny Tan, some of the other folks that have helped along the way, I'm not alone in being the only person doing this. They've all been a part of it, as well as my wife Danielle. We wouldn't be where we're at today without it. 5 years actually this year, so
Wow.
we'll celebrate 5 years in June. And that seems like a really short time, but when you're trying to get started, that's a huge hurdle.
Yep.
Most small businesses, if they can make it 3 years, they'll probably make it 10 years. So making it to 5, we're really happy with that.
Definitely.
And a huge part of that for us has been, we are not a for-profit business, so that's a big part of it. We're a nonprofit, and so all of our instructors, including myself, are all volunteers. Any donations, fees, or charges we charge for any performances or anything goes 100% into paying the rent, the insurance, the equipment. The kids don't pay, so like to lion dance they don't pay.
That's great.
When we last year we had some organized martial arts classes. Kids were paying a minimal fee for that, $25 a month at the time. This year we haven't started up again with the actual martial arts program. Right now, the few kids that we have that train martial arts kind of just train on their own. Come here, we're like, okay, it's open mat, train, do what you need, and then we help them along the way. We'll probably look to be doing actual classes again here in the near future. We just recently moved into a new facility. We were homeless for a few months, and so that really held us back from having lots of classes and being able to publicly post, hey, we're at this time at this place, come train. But we'll get back to that eventually.
This is a way better location.
It is the distance from everything is way better.
Yeah.
The size is under half, but it's doable.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make it work. And really, before this, we were at Chase Dance Academy, and thank you very much, Miss Steph and Chase, for that, because they did not charge us. And in fact, I need to get a hold of Miss Steph because I'll be doing a women's self-defense seminar over there.
Nice.
For them as a thank you from us. And of course, we've lion danced for them as a thank you as well. And we really appreciate all the support we've had from them in the community here in Lincoln, the dance community,
Mm-hmm.
not just the martial arts community. So it's been really great.
Nice. Yeah, no, that is pretty great. So like, what all? I see like we have some weapons. Like, what all? Weapons, instruments, line heads.
Yeah, so back here we have a couple of racks full of weapons. Um, Although traditionally we would teach how to both do forms and performances with the weapons and to utilize the weapon. Here at JMT, we don't do a lot of weapons applications, mostly because, once again, we're teaching the performance art.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a few staff drills that I teach that are staff on staff directly applicable drills. But in general, we teach the performance portion of weaponry. And I've got a few personal feelings on that. And then the number one is utilizing the weapons will make your hands better, right? And number two is, in this day and age, for the most part, you don't have access to a pitchfork unless you work on the farm. You don't have access to a sword unless you work at a movie set. You know?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so spending too much time concentrating on how to fight with a sword detracts from utilization of your actual tools, right? So here, our first weapon that the students would learn would be the broadsword. And this, as you can tell, is a performance weapon. It's not heavy or sharp. But the broadsword was the foot soldier's weapon during the Chinese military. Most of these weapons are either farm tools or military tools. And it says that, an old Chinese saying says that you can be proficient with a broadsword within 100 days because you're training soldiers. So here we teach broadsword first. And mostly the reason for that was the students wanted to learn it. Traditionally, we teach the staff first. Instead, we teach staff second. It's the second weapon. And then after broadsword and staff, everything else is elective. If a student wants to learn how to play the straight sword, which is like an officer's weapon in the military, we teach that. This is called a tiger fork. It's actually not a pitchfork like on the farm. It was used to hunt tigers in the old days.
Wow.
100 years ago, 200 years ago even, there were wild tigers in South China. And so if there was a tiger that became a problem for a village, this is the weapon that was used to kill the tiger. And the idea is when the tiger attacks, it leaps. And so the weapon's long enough, the tiger would leap upon the fork without harming the person.
Yeah.
On the other rack, this one is also a military weapon of a foot soldier. We call it a horse chopping knife. And it was used to cut the legs out from underneath cavalrymen. And so as the horses would be marching along, foot soldiers would use this weapon to cut the legs out from under a horse and then kill the rider. On the back end, there's a ring. The ring was used to ensnare any of the trappings of the horse. The horse's kit, saddle, reins, the tack of the horse. And then in turn also to entrap maybe the weapon of the rider, possibly. After that, we have some other smaller weapons. These are called butterfly swords, usually in English. In Chinese, there's several different names for them. Bull's ears knives, shield knives, ox tongue knives, several different names, crane's wing knives. But what they are is they're like a boot knife. They could be carried in the boot. They could be carried on the back. They're a concealable weapon that were very common amongst rebel troops. And a lot of times in the South, where militias weren't so rich, they would use a single knife and a rattan shield. And so knife and shield, you could hide the knife behind the shield. The shield could be used to block, and the knife would come out and attack. And then probably lastly, of all the weapons that are here, we have a pair of sai. In Chinese, we call these iron rulers. And there's a couple different stories on where they come from, whether they're the bridle of a horse, if they were used as like hay forks. There's lots of different theories. But they actually originate in South China and were later then adopted by the Okinawans because the Okinawans learned karate from the Chinese. Outside of that, that's pretty much all the weapons we have here and teach. And and like I say, most of them are electives. Once
Mm-hmm.
they've learned the broadsword and the staff, everything else is pretty much what they're interested in as students, because they're for performance purposes. So what would
Yeah.
that student be interested in performing either in a tournament or at a demonstration, say Chinese New Year or Moon Festival or anything like that?
Nice. Have you ever competed, bow
No, with the staff, actually,
staff?
I've never competed with the staff. I've competed with broadsword and with straight sword when I was much younger. Um, I actually didn't do a whole lot of competition in forms. I spent most of my competitive time either in judo, wrestling, or BJJ.
Mm-hmm.
Just who I was.
Right.
I didn't care to compete in forms that much.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the folks I grew up with, they did a lot of the forms tournaments. But I was too busy trying to wrestle guys.
Right. Yeah, and like, I think you told me that you've been in like the Lincoln martial arts scene since 1996.
Roughly, yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere around that region. I actually started in Omaha under a student of Master Suki Shin, Master Rod Reynoldson. My mom had me taking private lessons. See, I'm Amerasian, so my dad's Caucasian. My mom's actually Korean, and in the community, it was traditional to push Taekwondo on your kid.
Mm-hmm.
My little brother and sister both have black belts in Taekwondo. They didn't have a choice.
Legit ones.
But they didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
literally, you're
Uh-huh.
Korean, you're going to Taekwondo class. Well, I didn't want anything to do with it. And this was at a young age. I already knew I didn't want anything to do with it. So she got a hold of Grandmaster Shin, Korean to Korean, and was like, okay, listen, my kid doesn't want to do Taekwondo. You don't allow kids into your other classes because they did Hapkido and different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Can we compromise? And she was like, well, this teacher lives in your neighborhood. Ask him. And Master Rod was a customer of my mom's at the Chinese restaurant, actually, that we owned. And so, long story short, when I would go to visit my mother in Omaha, I'd do between 2 and 4 hours of private lessons with him doing Hapkido, Kempo Karate, and anything else he felt like teaching me. The man had 4 or 5 black belts. And so that's where I really got started. And then
Wow.
here in Lincoln, I want to say it was 5th grade. The Thunderhead Judo Club, which was a Lincoln Public Schools judo club, came to my elementary school and did a demonstration. And these guys were flinging each other around the room, and they were doing, diving somersaults over people and all sorts of, cool stuff. And I was like, man, that's really cool. I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I talked my dad into, taking me, and it was free through Lincoln Public Schools. And I actually trained at Thunderhead Judo Club from 5th grade all the way through high school. By the time I
Wow.
was in high school, I was training both at Shion Roseberry School and Thunderhead. So I was actually training judo anywhere from 4 to 6 days a week at that time. That's all through middle school, up into high school.
Wow.
I received my black belt. My black belt certificate actually came from Thunderhead Judo Club, but Shihan Roseberry sat on the panel. So I got my black belt kind of in a combo type test from those guys. So judo was my main focus all throughout that time.
Mm-hmm.
But being a member of the Shorei Shobukan Dojo, back then especially, they had Japanese swordsmanship and Tai Chi and Aikido, and they had judo and karate, and all that. At one point there was like 9 different disciplines being taught there and all sorts of stuff. And I was kind of a gym rat at the dojo. It was in walking distance, and those of us kids that were at Thunderhead Judo Club who were serious about being judo competitors, he let us train for free. So a lot of my childhood, when I got old enough to pay, I started paying, but a lot of my childhood, I trained with the LPS Judo Club and John Roseberry's club simultaneously for years and years and years. And then on top of that, I was doing lion dance and Chinese Kung Fu through the Asian Culture Center and Lincoln High.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was just a huge amalgamation
Just a lot.
of craziness. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just basically spent all my free time, where other kids were back then playing with Sega Genesis or something, or like into skateboarding or basketball, football, whatever. All I was doing was martial arts in some way, shape, or form. I started lion dancing at the Asian Culture Center at 14. I was in 8th grade, and my buddy, who was a 9th grader, introduced me to Master Yuan, Dr. Gary Yuan, his plant pathologist at East Campus. And he taught some basic kung fu, but mostly lion dancing. And then through the Lincoln High Chinese language program, I got more into Chinese martial arts. And so it was just this huge, like, every day was something. If I wasn't training judo, I was training kung fu. If I wasn't training kung fu, I was training, lion dance. If I wasn't lion dancing, maybe I stopped in an aikido class. Or
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty much my life.
Yeah, Thunderhead Judo Club. That just sounds like a place where you go to get your butt kicked. Like,
It was interesting. A couple of the guys from Thunderhead have come back to judo now and are training at Roseberry's pretty consistently, and kind of we talk a lot about it and have a lot of memories. There's a lot of times as a kid, I can remember I was always big. My first judo tournament as a green belt, I was so heavy for my age that I had to fight a purple belt from Omaha and got my butt whipped. It's such a vivid memory. His name was Nick Pesic. Like, I could tell you who he was. It's such a vivid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was because of my size. Mm-hmm. And, so at the club, you'd have all these older guys who were like, just graduated high school, whatever, and I'm this little kid, but I'm so big and roly-poly, they all had to wrestle me. Mm-hmm. So I was just getting whipped and whipped and whipped. And I think that's why I can go to jiu-jitsu now and, like, I might not be winning, but you ain't whipping me.
Right.
Because I've been beat up on so much, It's just, like, I've always been big. At one point, as a competitive judo player, this is a long time ago now, 209 was the cutoff. You weighed anything more than 209, you fought everybody. I fought a kid that weighed like 314 up in Minnesota one time. And then they shot it up to 219 was like the cap. This is probably back towards the end of my competitive judo career. I, at one tournament, fought two different 4-3 black belts that were both over 300 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, just nuts. And the one guy, actually, he was from Shins, Bob. I knew him. I watched him at a taekwondo tournament do a spinning back kick and break a guy's cup because he missed. He kicked too low and broke the guy's cup.
That's not judo, Bob?
No, not Bob Whitmer. No. This is from Suki Shin School.
Oh.
Different school.
I was about to say, I'm going to watch out for that move.
Yeah. Because Bob was a taekwondo, hapkido, judo, triple black belt, this guy from Shins.
Wow.
And I watched him spinning back kick and break a guy's cup at a tournament. And then later I had to fight him at the state games. But via Conan's jiu-jitsu, I beat him.
Nice, there we go.
I choked him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun match.
Yeah, no, it's a good little notch on the belt.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even that because I don't have a lot of notches on my belt when it comes to that stuff. Mm-hmm. I was never the phenom the rest of you guys are, but I always loved it. And and I guess that fast forwards me all the way to 2006 when I first started training with Conan. Mm-hmm. And Darren Brudigan back then also. Darren was the main jiu-jitsu instructor over at Roseberry's. And that little bit of jiu-jitsu we had back in the old days was enough. I went to the state games, fought judo. He's great big 300-some pound guy, and we're fighting, and he misses a throw, and he goes turtles up. Typical judo. Took his back and choked him.
Nice.
Using techniques taught by Conan back then. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of developed from there. And it was that summer I just quit going to judo pretty much every once in a while, and I focused on jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. And that was the beginning of that focus in that part of my life.
Do you feel like you still like do everything, but do you feel like you have to like move on every few years or like chase something different? Or sometimes I feel that way. I've done a bunch of different things, like
Yes and no. I like always keep dipping my toe back all the time. Mm-hmm. Like I'll show up at Roseberry's once in a while and do a judo class with them or whatever, right? But from the time, so I actually started jiu-jitsu and got hurt by a jiu-jitsu guy, and I didn't understand what hard training was on that level yet, and so I was upset. I didn't want to come back to jiu-jitsu, and eventually, basically, I got back to jiu-jitsu. And I kind of understood it a little better. Of course, back then, Roseberry's was gladiator school, man. Guys were trying to hurt each other, like purposely. Really? Oh yeah, there was a lot of that kind of crap. Yeah, man. Anyway, I came back to jiu-jitsu, got back to training, understood, and Conan really helped with that a lot. Conan's training philosophy, Conan's teaching philosophy really helped with that a lot. And when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, what's for me, martial arts wise, there's probably nothing that supersedes BJJ. Mm-hmm. Whether we go back to the old days when we weren't even doing the Brazilian We were just kind of doing whatever Conan could pick up and help us with, all the way fast forward to now with Greg. Um, Hands down, in my mind, there's nowhere that I work harder, nowhere that I'm challenged more, and nothing that has given me the same level of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Not that judo didn't give me confidence, because man, judo's a tough sport too.
Yeah.
You know, I got a lot of confidence out of judo, but not the same type of self-confidence jiu-jitsu has given me. And I think mostly that's been the type of people I trained with. And what I mean is, like, in judo, I trained with some tough guys,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but not that many.
Yeah.
Via jiu-jitsu, man, there's been days where every single human being in the building could take my head off tough. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes you train at a different level mentally as well as physically.
Yeah.
And so because of that, for instance, like, you know, eventually Greg moved back to Nebraska. Greg started training at Roseberry's with us. Then, you know, basically Greg was like, you know, hey, we're going to go do this thing. And we all went, you know, including me, who had been at that point at the dojo for like 20 years, you know, because it was time for me to follow that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, did I still keep my toes, you know, dipped in the pool over the dojo? Of course. And still, you know, honor my teacher? Of course. But it was time to do more.
Mm-hmm.
And Greg had more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've dabbled in all sorts of crap, man. I got like a green belt in Hapkido and a brown belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and a this and a that and whatever, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, Jiu-Jitsu is like the heart of my martial arts. You know, really, I see Jiu-Jitsu in everything. Even when I'm practicing Kung Fu, I see Jiu-Jitsu in it. You know, and I love Kung Fu, and I practice it and enjoy it. But if I were to say, like, if this didn't exist for me tomorrow, would I still practice Kung Fu? Yeah, once in a while. But I'd be at Jiu-Jitsu 3-4 days a week. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, that's my me thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Same here. Like, I definitely like to dabble in like a lot of things. Like, you know, you're into powerlifting too.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I don't know. I always have to keep trying other things, but I still keep jiu-jitsu constant for sure.
Keeps you sharp.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Yeah. I was kind of into powerlifting at one point several years ago, and just a crazy course of events happened in life. Had an on-the-job injury. Almost led to unemployment for a little while. Almost.
Wow.
Didn't though. Anyway, long story short, and then my mom passed away, and I just wasn't in a headspace to train much of anything really.
Mm-hmm.
But recently, I kind of was like, you know, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. Let's get back and get back in the gym and just work out. And when I first got back to the gym, I was just working out. And then I forgot how much I enjoyed lifting heavy things.
Mm-hmm.
And I got back to the gym in March. In May was the first time I had deadlifted over 500 again since I got out of the gym. And it felt so good. I was like, oh man, I'm going to chase this. And I made a decision just for me. I've competed in BJJ. I've competed in judo. I wrestled in high school a little bit. Competed in forms and point sparring and all that junk. Never did fight MMA, and I don't think the guys, they're too crazy for me.
Yeah.
But
I'm on that too.
Yeah.
I'm get on that.
But you know, I never did compete in powerlifting. And so I made a decision I was going to compete.
Mm.
So I looked around town. I said I wanted a coach who was here in town. I didn't want to, you know, somebody. Yeah, I could hire somebody famous through a website somewhere and send videos, but I didn't want that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted somebody right here in town that push came to shove. If I needed them to, you know, hey, come to the gym, or I'm coming to your gym, or whatever. And so I found somebody locally. Desi Cooney, he was at Kratos, and you're familiar with that gym. Recently, he went out on his own and started Outlier Strength and Conditioning, so I'm working with him through Outlier, and I'm looking at doing my first competition in May.
That's awesome.
For USAPL State Championships at Midland College. And that was just for me. I needed something competitive to do that was for me, and I'm not into team sports.
Mm-hmm.
So powerlifting works.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's nice to, you know, you can see progress, like, you know, like almost like bi-weekly or almost daily, you know, like.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's rewarding.
Plus, I get to see a lot of my jiu-jitsu buddies doing that then, because a lot of the same guys from the gym, you know, work out at where I work out at the gym I work out at, so that's
Mm-hmm.
nice too. Because I don't get into jiu-jitsu as often as I'd like to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's tough. But yeah, all good, right? What can people do to get involved here at Jingmo Tong?
So the best way to contact us, find anything out about us is on our Facebook. So Jingmo Tong Athletic Association
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook. That is the best way. If you want to message us or email us, my phone number is on there. Anything, text, call, get a hold of us. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you're interested in learning lion dancing or Chinese performance martial arts, you're welcome to get a hold of me. I can let you know about classes. Membership is on a tryout basis. It's not an open public club. It is a free community club, but the way things work out is that we do have tryouts, and so you have to come try out, meet everybody, see if this is even for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because it is a free thing
Right.
to the community, and a little bit different. Like, you go to like Lincoln BJJ, you pay a monthly fee, you come to a class. Here there is no fees. You show up, you work hard, you train, you outperform, you help the club earn money. And so because of that, you got to kind of try out to be on the team.
Yeah.
But like I say, contact us on our Facebook. All the info's there, and we have multilingual folks. So if you're more comfortable speaking Vietnamese, we have Vietnamese speakers that'll talk to you. Mandarin, Chinese, Cantonese, English. Yeah. So we got it all.
Sweet. When's your next event?
Oh, we got a ton coming up. As far as open to the public type events that are going to be super friendly to the community, let me look at the date here because I don't want to misquote the date. The Asian Culture and Community Center will be having a Lunar New Year festival. And that's going to be on February 8th. It should start around noon, and it'll be at the Lancaster Event Center. So February 8th at the Lancaster Event Center, the Asian Culture and Community Center will have, it'll be a big event. They always put up a lot of booths, have food, have dancers, singers, martial arts. They got a live band, and it's open to the public. It's free to get in. That's probably the best event to come see us at.
Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot, sir.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.